Hi, I'm Lawrence Jepson, and this is the SH-4d Synthesizer, a desktop powerhouse with hands-on workflow and deep synthesis tools for crafting a wide array of sounds. This 5-part multitimbral synth is packed with 11 oscillator models that cover everything from vintage analog synths and PCM sounds to cutting-edge digital tones. The LCD sliders and buttons automatically reconfigure their functions to follow the selected oscillator model, while the filter, amp, and LFO sections are always set to shape whatever sound you're working on. The SH-4d also has a 5-track sequencer consisting of 4 parts polyphonic record and playback with any of the 11 oscillator models, and a dedicated rhythm track with 26 customizable instruments. Let's take a closer look at the SH-4d selection of oscillator models. The first oscillator model is the SH-4d. Inspired by Roland's SH synthesizers of the past, the SH-4d is comprised of 4 oscillators to create huge analog-inspired sounds. This is great for massive basses, or maybe some rich and full pads. You'll notice the oscillator mixer section here is a fundamental part of how we interact with the SH-4d and its various models. On the SH-4d model, these sliders act as a mixer for the oscillator levels. And using the 4 buttons here, we can select which oscillator we'd like to change and interact with. Up here are the pitch and timbre knobs that correspond to each individual oscillator. Next, we have the SH-3d model, similar to the 4d, but swapping out oscillator 4 for a second LFO. We can select from 10 different LFO shapes, change its rates, pitch modulation, and fade time using the knobs and sliders. The sync oscillator model allows us to use 2 oscillators in sync for a range of modulated and metallic sounds. We can select from 9 different waveforms, choose between mono and poly playback, and by using the 4 sliders, we can change the pitch depth and envelope character of the sync oscillator. The SH-4d also includes iconic legacy models like the SH-101 and the JUNO-106, both great for tapping into classic analog sounds. The LCD screen gives you the familiar look of the original oscillator mix section and corresponds directly to the 4 sliders. The Cross FM oscillator model is great for capturing both classic and modern experimental sounds with its 2 operators, one for the main output and the other to modulate it via the pitch envelope and ratio. I'll select a waveform for each operator and rate them out. I can also add ferocity and character to any of my sounds using the SH-4d's newly developed ladder filter, including a dedicated drive knob that can be added to any model. The ring mod oscillator model is built off 2 waves that distorts and manipulates via ring modulation, perfect for experimental textures. And some harsh basses. The wavetable oscillator model is perfect for those modern and futuristic sounds. With a staggering 31 wavetables to choose from, there are almost no bounds to the sound palette you wish to create. So select a wavetable, then use the sliders to adjust the position manually, or by using the envelopes. And for creating even more movement in the sound, you can modulate the wavetable position with the LFO using the timbre knob. The chord oscillator model uses the SH-4D's 4 oscillators to stack up to 4 notes paraphonically to deliver 19 different chord variations. You can use the timbre knob to mix the amount of chord tones you want, and slider 2 to pick the inversion or voicing of the chord. The drawing oscillator model lets you create custom wave shapes using the 4 sliders to draw patterns up to a 32-step resolution. With the directional buttons, you can traverse and alter each of the 32 steps to create more intricate detail within your shapes. Adjust the timbre knob to smooth or sharpen out the edges. And hold any of the 4 buttons to create some slopes. Lastly, the PCM oscillator model allows you to mix up to 4 different PCM parts, choosing from a range of 53 waveforms, pulling from a stackable palette of sounds. It's also worth mentioning that the rhythm part is actually an entire synth itself. For each of the 26 instruments, you can design and layer your own bespoke kits, selecting from 439 different drum samples and VA waves for unique and experimental layering. There's a dedicated pitch envelope for each instrument, and you can also sculpt each instrument with the filter and amp controls. To program our sounds and bring them to life, the SH-4D also contains a 5-part sequencer. Parts 1 to 4 are for recording and playing any of the 11 oscillator models, and part 5 provides a dedicated rhythm part. Parts can be sequenced with the step sequencer or in real time, with substep and probability available for both tone and rhythm parts. In pattern or mixer mode, part levels can be easily adjusted and muted to create on-the-fly arrangements. To give patterns even more life, we can change the play mode, reversing and randomizing playback. Or finesse them in other ways with motion recording, capturing knob and slider movements in real time, or programming them step by step. I can also use the powerful matrix section to control up to 4 model parameters via a variety of modulation sources like LFOs, envelopes, or external MIDI sources. Another way of animating and morphing our sounds is with the D-Motion feature. Using the on-screen X and Y pad, I can select 2 mod destinations, then move and tilt the SH-4D to change those parameters. Finally, the visual Arpeggio offers 5 different modes for a fun and interactive playback experience. Great for coming up with fresh ideas and interesting sequences. With the integrated USB-C audio MIDI interface, you can record and monitor 12 discrete audio channels to your DAW, as well as transmit CC messages via the panel, knobs, D-Motion, and visual Arpeggio. Adding the SH-4D to a more extensive hardware setup is seamless, with its 5-pin MIDI I/O, dedicated clock input, and a 3.5mm stereo input for an external sound source. The SH-4D can be powered with a standard USB-C phone charger or AA batteries for up to 4 hours of play. And with its perfected grab-and-go design, the SH-4D is the ultimate creative tool, whether in the studio, on the road, or at home. And that is the SH-4D. For more information, be sure to visit Roland.com.